Good morning from Jenny Clouston. Another beautiful day here on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, Australia. I'd just firstly like to thank Pauline, Judy, Rhonda and Deborah and Barbara for taking the time to comment on my first YouTube video. I really appreciate your encouragement. So today, because I'm trying to get it clearer and me more comfortable, I just thought I'd like to talk to you about what I call my stitching necessities, and they're my tools of my trade. Now, because I enjoy sewing and not fussing through 50 million types of needles, I keep, as I said in my previous video, I keep my needles down to the bare minimum. And for me, the type of needle that you use compared to the fabric that we use is actually very, very important. But to keep it really nice and simple and not to go down a rabbit hole, I'll just go through what I use in my sewing stash. So on my sewing table, I have a little basket. I actually made the basket from 1-inch strips of fabric, which I then crocheted to make this little basket. And in my basket, I have a little jug and marking pens, which, as you know, I don't actually use a lot. However, when I teach, I have to use them because I'm marking on people's work. I use water erasable pens, and even then I'm a little bit reluctant to use them, but I do because I sort of have worked out a method. I'll tell you about that later, how to get rid of it immediately. My favorite marking pen is actually a Bowen chalk marker, which is perfect. It goes away immediately. It's a little bit thick on the edge, but that's not so much of a big problem. And obviously some little pair of scissors, and I'm being a very naughty girl because I'm storing them point down, which, as you know, we shouldn't be doing, but it doesn't really matter. And my needles. So I have a little I'm infatuated by pin cushions, but anyway, this is just an old vintage cotton reel, and this is a ball of yarn from a crocheting project that I use. So I just rolled all the yarn into a ball and then just wound some thread through, and it makes quite a nice sort of soft kind of thing. And I just keep that in my little sewing basket, and I've got my needles, which I'm going to talk to you about now. So needles, I need to tell you right now that I am a bit of a needle snob, I have to confess, and my favorite kind of needle is a Bowen. I don't know why I love them. They just feel so good going through my fabric, and they feel good in my hands. And look, I'm a little bit sad actually. So the first needle we're going to talk about is the Chenille 22, and you can see she's a lovely fat short needle with a lovely big glorious eye, easy to thread. You have to use this needle for silk ribbon embroidery, hands down. You can't use any other needle at all. But she's also handy for metallic threads and for any kind of difficult thread that gets distressed as it gets pulled through the layers of fabric. She makes a really big hole in your fabric, and the thread should just glide down. You can actually basically do all your embroidery, depending on the fabric, with this needle because it's easy to thread, etc. Obviously, you can't use this needle when you're doing a French knot or a colonial knot or a bullion, etc., because the big eye will loosen all the knots and wraps as you pull it through. So she's not a great needle for that kind of thing. Then the other packet of needles is I buy a straw or milliner's needle and a size 3 to a size 9. Very handy. So that's all I use, these two. And in this pack, obviously I've got some missing. There will be a size 9 needle, which is smaller than that one, and that's fine because that very fine needle will go through most of my beads. So that's pretty cool. I don't have to buy a special beading needle, and these are the other needles that I will use all the time. Another needle that I have is a beautiful milliner's number 1. Have a look at her. She's very nice and glorious too, nice and long. The eye of a milliner's or straw needle is the same size as the shaft, so this is the needle that you have to use for any kind of knotting, colonial knots, or any needle weaving. She's your go-to. But they are beautiful needles, so give them a go if you haven't tried. Now we're going back to marking. So if I have used this pen, I really need to go and get out of the sun because I've got beautiful little sunspots on this. So if I've drawn a line and I need to get rid of it, or I have done the embroidery underneath, I simply use a little jug of water and some cotton buds, and I get rid of that blue mark straight away with my cotton bud. So she's gone almost immediately. So that's in my little basket. Also, I have some Nemo beading thread. I have an aversion to little soft wobbly beads, so Nemo beading thread is perfect for beading, and she doesn't stretch and loosen over time. So there you go. Talking about beading, inside here somewhere is a little lid of a caper jar, which I have put a beading mat in there. And why I use this is I like to bring my beads to my work rather than stretching over and reaching for my beads. So I just decant them and bring them to my work. I find that easier. And also on here I've got a little spider that my grandson gave me, little Finn, and some odd doll. I do love a little bit of stuff. So there you go. That's all I need. And not forgetting my ring cutter, one of my favorite tools. They don't make them evidently anymore, but it's just there's a little blade in there, and so when I'm wanting to cut my threads, I sort of just give my thumb a flick and it cuts. Just saves me time picking up a pair of scissors all the time. So I might have to actually find somewhere else to sit and sew, because the little rays of sunlight I think are quite disconcerting in this video. But once again, thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you soon. Bye.